So, with James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over the brand new DC Studios as co-executive producers and CEOs, in this video I thought of 7 potential projects that they could be working on. Movies and shows. None of these have to be directly directed by James Gunn, but these will be ones that they could potentially produce. And one day we will see them on the big screen or on the TV screen. My name is Brogi Naric, and this is the Playhouse. So, the Playhouse is a series on this channel where I give out various fan castings for movies and TV shows, and also give out theories and pictures for potential TV shows, video games, and films. So James Gunn and Peter Safran are once again co-executive producers of DC Studios, and they're going to be running the films, the animation, and the TV divisions. I'm not too sure about if they're going to have control over the video games or the comics, much like Kevin Feige does. I don't think it's going to be quite that overreaching. And we also know that Todd Phillips' The Joker film, and as far as we know, Matt Reeves' Batman films are not under their jurisdiction just yet. So this is not going to be any thoughts about what's going to happen in the Batman. If you want my thoughts on what could potentially be happening in Matt Reeves' Batman-centric universe, I did a whole video about that. You can check it right here. But for now, we're just going to be talking about the DCU projects. I got 7 of them in no particular order, but the first one I'm going to start with is Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes. So Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes, I'm thinking this could be either a movie or a series, most likely a movie. This whole thing has to deal with whatever they're planning to do with Sasha Calle's version of Supergirl that's going to be appearing in the alleged Flash film that might be releasing. Supergirl is a popular character. They had her own show. She's had various runs in the comics. She's made various cameo appearances throughout the cartoons and live action shows. So Supergirl is not my favorite character by herself, and I prefer when she's like on a team or with other somewhat interesting or more interesting characters, very much like in the Justice League cartoon, or when she's hanging with the Legion of Superheroes. And I think this would be a better way to take the Supergirl character and not just have her be in the shadow of Superman. Have her do something else, have her be a little bit distant from Superman, forging her own life in the future with a bunch of other different characters. Although I'm not saying I don't want to see this version of Supergirl interact with Henry Cavill Superman. I would like to see that, but then I don't need it for the entire series. She's there once, and then she's gone somehow in the future, hanging with the Legion of Superheroes. Now, the Legion of Superheroes is a superhero team in the 31st century, the future of one of the various futures of the DC universe. And they're kind of like a combination of if the Teen Titans grew up to be the Justice League, but they were still young, and their big superhero team made all these younger superheroes from different planets coming together to save the universe. They're cool characters. They've been around for a long time. They used to work with Superboy. They've also had runs hanging out with Supergirl. They were in the CW Supergirl show. They were also in the Smallville show. So these are known characters. They've had various starts and stops throughout DC, especially in recent years. I think they're back in the comics nowadays. I'm not sure. DC in recent years have been kind of weird about do they want these characters around or not, but I think they would be fun characters to introduce into the DC cinematic universe. And we also know that James Gunn does like these characters to a degree, because there are some wackier characters. The character of TDK in the Suicide Squad was a take on the character Arm Fall Off Boy, who is a member or is connected to the Legion of Superheroes. And in the Peacemaker show, Peacemaker did name drop Matter Eater Lad, who is a member of the Legion of Superheroes as well. So James Gunn does know of the Legion of Superheroes, and like I said, there's a bunch of wacky characters that he could have fun with. James Gunn does like his sci-fi adventure, and like once again, I think this would be a benefit for the Supergirl character to have her stand out on her own as opposed to being Superman's shadow. So Supergirl and Legion of Superheroes is my first pick. The next project on my list is Justice League Dark or the Shadow Pact. So this franchise would be movies and series. This has already been sort of in production for a while, originally with Guillermo del Toro, and recently J.J. Abrams was attached to handle this, and that hasn't really fruitioned into anything, but I do think it's coming. This is a popular franchise, a popular concept within DC. It's basically all of the popular magic-based superheroes coming together to form a team to fight against magical threats. In a way, you can kind of think of it as like a bloody and scarier version of Guardians of the Galaxy, where they're just these kooky characters coming together and going on these crazy adventures. And we know James Gunn loves his horror. Peter Safran, he helped create the Conjuring franchise into his own universe. And the two of them could do the same here with Justice League Dark. Now, the reason I say Shadow Pact is because Shadow Pact was the earlier team in the comics before Justice League Dark. It was basically Justice League Dark, but instead of it being the popular Magic characters, it was like these low-rent Magic characters. And I also think that Shadow Pact is just a better name than calling it Justice League Dark. It sounds very sort of derivative, so just to make it a little bit different, a little more unique. But Justice League Dark would work just as well. I would take both of those teams and kind of do a mix mash of those characters. This is a no-brainer. There's a lot of cool characters on this team that could be used and could be brought into the spotlight. We've seen it with the animated film. We see it in various cartoons, and it's bound to happen. They've been working on this for so long. Just make it happen. It's something to be different from Marvel, because they're just starting to get into the Magic stuff, but they don't have a Magic team just yet. Not saying that DC should rush into it. They could, build it here with a series there, a series here, but then have them come together in a movie or whichever way they want to do it. But it should happen. I could definitely see James Gunn having fun with characters like Detective Chimp, Blue Devil, Deadman, Swamp Thing, even a random character like Ragman. Wonder Woman is also a member of this team in the more current versions of the team, so there's another big name character you can bring in. Zatanna is a fan favorite. She should be the leader of this team. John Constantine is another fan favorite who is a member of he's a member of this team. And another character who is Magic-based, who is a member of the Shadow Pact, is Enchantress, who we haven't seen since the end of Suicide Squad. I don't know if they would want to bring that character back, but you could tie her into this as well, because she's a member of Magic superhero users as well. So just another way to kind of tie it to other stuff, but loosely tie it, just like the Suicide Squad film. Just an idea. Justice League Dark or the Shadow Pact is my pick number 2. Third pick, another obvious pick, and that is Static Shock. Come on, Static Shock, obvious pick. They've been talking about this for at least, 4 years now? 3 years now? They were kind of announcing, they got the Milestone rights back under DC. They said that Michael B. Jordan was producing something. They never said if it was a movie or a series. I'm pitching a movie here. Make it a movie. It should be a movie. Static Shock is like the second most popular black superhero right underneath Black Panther, so I don't know why they're dragging their ass to tap into that market. He's a fan favorite, especially for millennials and people in my age range. And we knew that Michael B. Jordan is attached to this. There's been all these talks about J.J. Abrams' Black Superman film, which I don't think needs to be a thing. I would take the writer Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's attached to the Black Superman project, take him off of that, bring him to Static Shock, and have him work on that. And I also think this is even more likely to happen because they just reworked the Green Lantern series to still focus on Alan Scott and Guy Gardner, two lesser-known, less popular Green Lanterns, and focus on John Stewart, a more well-known and more popular character, and also a black superhero. I could see James Gunn getting the ball rolling on getting a Static Shock project off the ground as well. They're also doing a Blue Beetle project, who is another young superhero who's non-white superhero, and that's a movie, and they had that as a budget. You can do a Static Shock movie for an even lesser budget than that. Not saying give it a small budget, but you don't have to be as big. So Static Shock, I think, is a very obvious pick. I did a whole another video where I did a fan casting for that. It's really good. You should also check that one out right here. But yeah, Static Shock, make it happen. Number 4 on my list, I have Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. So Mr. Miracle is this godlike escape artist who's a superhero and also super famous. And then he has his wife, Big Barda, who's also another godlike powerhouse, who is his loving wife and is like a giant of a woman. They're a great couple, and they're kind of trying to live a normal life by also being famous, but also being superheroes, and also having like a fucked up past of their childhood, being tortured on the planet of Apocalypse and breaking out of that and escaping the Earth. And there's a lot of dynamics there that you can play with. I could see them also loosely basing this on the recent Tom King Mr. Miracle series, which was very popular. I haven't read it, but I know it's very popular. It had a lot of awards. And that was a more darker take on the character, him dealing with like depression and like suicidal thoughts and his trauma of, being tortured as a child, which, led to him becoming this great escape artist. But this would also be another way to rely on a slightly smaller budget as opposed to going full force with the New Gods. It'd be another way to slightly ease your way into the New Gods and the Fourth World characters like Apocalypse and Orion and, Furies and all of that. It'd be another cool way to ease yourself into it. And I think it would be a fairly easy series to do as well. And I think that could really happen. So Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, it's a good bet. So number 5 on my list is another no-brainer choice and something that's been in development for a while, allegedly been in development for a while, and that is Booster Gold. Now this could also be a movie or a series, but I'm kind of leaning more towards a series with this one. Booster Gold is like this cocky douchebag failed athlete who is from the future in the 25th century. He goes back into the past and uses his technology to try to be a superhero in the modern era for fame and fortune and glory and women. But he has to, slowly get out of this sort of egotistical side of him and truly become like a great superhero. And he's a fun character. He's been around since the 80s. He's popped up in a lot of different cartoons. He's even popped up in live action in Smallville. There's been talk that a Booster Gold film has been in development for a while now. And James Gunn is someone who would definitely lean into something like this because this is a comedy, it's a sci-fi, it's time travel. And I think it would work better as a series because you could use this as a companion piece or even a bit of a prequel to the Blue Beetle movie with Jaime Reyes, because Booster Gold has a legendary team up with the character Blue Beetle, the second Blue Beetle, Ted Kord, the team of Blue and Gold. And you can kind of use this series as a backdoor way to show earlier Ted Kord. We're not going to focus on Ted Kord as the Blue Beetle in the Blue Beetle movies. I think attaching him to the Booster Gold series would be a way to kind of get that relationship, because everyone loves that partnership of those two characters. And this show could be more of like a buddy cop team-up bromance between Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. Very much sort of like Peacemaker and Vigilante, but not quite as dark or as hateful, because these guys actually like each other. Kind of have like a little bit of The Boys vibe, where all the Vought stuff, where you have a hero who's like egotistical and is more worried about his advertisements and engagement and his clicks on social media. Like, you can kind of bring some of that cynicalness into it as well. And I think this would be a pretty fun series. So Booster Gold would be my 5th pick. So with these last 2 picks, this is when I'm going to get a little bit weird, because the other ones have been a little sort of no-brainers, certain things that would most likely could really happen, but these are the more far-fetched ones. So my 6th pick is Legion. Now, Legion, I'm thinking of this would be a series. Legion stands for the Licensed Extra Governmental Interstellar Operatives Network, and it's basically a intergalactic police force for hire type of group. Essentially, it's kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, but with a little more structure, a little more rigid, and way bigger. It's much more bureaucracy. And I'm thinking of this as sort of like a Guardians of the Galaxy sort of cop comedy show, a little bit of cop show drama, and a little bit of The Expanse in a way, with the sci-fi and politics and bureaucracies and all that. This whole team of Legion is basically this intergalactic space force that is run by a bunch of former criminals who have now turned to be good. Somewhat like Cowboy Bebop in a way, where people have their shady backgrounds, but they're trying to be good. The team is led by Vril Dox II, aka Brainiac 2. He's like the genetic clone son of the Superman villain Brainiac. Robot android, sort of like Vision sort of deal. He's super smart and he wants to figure out a way to save the galaxy, so he creates this team, but they do it for money. They don't really do it for free, so that's a side of it as well. Once again, wacky group of weird aliens coming together. They're dealing with bureaucracies. They're trying to, they got to train people. They got to make sure things are going right. So you can see this sort of a situational comedy, or it could be sort of serious if you want to do that way. You focus on the struggles of running a business, corruption, politics, and various infighting things. This was a series that I haven't read, but I've seen it before. It was popular it was like the late 80s, early 90s when this was originally created. It was created by Keith Giffen, Alan Grant, and Todd McFarlane. And I know that James Gunn is a big fan of Keith Giffen and his writing. And this team also has loose connections to the Legion of Superheroes, so they're kind of like a precursor to the Legion. Some of the characters on this team are like the ancestors of the Legion of Superheroes. And the biggest reason why I think this might be turned into a series is because one of the most popular members on this team was Lobo. This was the series that really grew out Lobo's character. And Lobo was still a bad guy, but he was a member of this team from time to time. And I think this would be another way to kind of introduce the Lobo character, as opposed to just doing a straight up Lobo film, which you could do. But you can also have this be like the companion series where Lobo could pop in from time to time. Or not even from time to time, he would just be on the series, but then when he does bigger things in the movies, you can do it that way. So that was the main reason why I decided to do Legion. as sort of a backdoor way to bring in Lobo. Far-fetched, but could potentially happen. I mean, who would have thought we would have got a Polka Dot Man and a damn Peacemaker TV show, and it actually be good. So, you know, stranger things have happened. That's my 6th pick. And my last pick on this list is Frankenstein and the Creature Commandos. So this is a combination of 2 different properties. We have the superhero character within the DC universe of Frankenstein, and we have the Creature Commandos. So basically, Creature Commandos is this bizarre paramilitary group that was created by this top secret Project M during World War II. And they're basically very ragtag and run down, where they did these weird experiments on various soldiers and turned them into monster-looking creatures. That in a way, this would kind of be like a Hellboy type of vibe to it. Since they don't know what to do with the Hellboy films, why not let Warner Brothers do something with it? So Frankenstein would kind of be like a Hellboyish type character. He's this big monster who's, you know, somewhat immortal badass who's lived for generations. And Creature Commandos are kind of like the Suicide Squad, but they're even more secret and more run down. You could have the Creature Commandos be more like an urban legend that very few people even know about. And since it was started in World War II, I would kind of have this be a time-hopping period piece. If you're going to do a movie, you can start it maybe in World War II, they can go to Vietnam, and then the modern era. I would have Frankenstein team up with the Creature Commandos and introduce SHADE, which stands for Superhuman Advanced Defense Executive, which is this another weird agency, government branch that exists in the DC universe. I haven't read too many of those comics, but I know it exists. And this will be another way to get creature features and your monsters and your horror aspects into this franchise. Once again, something that Disney has slightly started to focus on, you can go full force with in another direction with the DC projects. Essentially, this will be more a horror-based version of the Suicide Squad. And we can introduce the characters like Lady Frankenstein, who is like the bride of Frankenstein, which has got like 4 arms. I get to see James Gunn just being attached to something that's sort of weird and creepy like this. And I think it's very random, but I think it could potentially happen. Like I said, you get the Wolfenstein vibes, you get the Hellboy vibes. It would be a fun time, but I would keep this more as a period piece, kind of mainly keep them in the past. You don't have to make them in the modern era, but if you do, that would also work. But just to give it a different vibe, I think they would probably keep this more in that World War II to maybe early 90s sort of, you know, fall of the Soviet Union vibe. Like they just was this weird, creepy Black Ops monster group that was just popping up here and there. I think that would be kind of fun idea. So that would be my last one on the list. You guys let me know what you think of this list or some of your own ideas for what James Gunn and DC Studios could be producing in the future. Some of your dream projects or some of your favorite characters you would love to see have a live action adaptation. And yeah, that's the video. And if you want to see more of my ideas, check out my video on The Batman 2 and also my video on Static Shock and a video where I fan cast Justice League International, which I did not put on this list because that could happen, but I kind of talked around it. But if you want to see those, check them out. They're in the card and they'll be in the description as well. This has been BrogiNaric. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more. Peace.